number?
5,000.
5 million bajillion.
1,000.
Remember when you were a kid and you used to just say like 4 bajillion? Make up big, huge numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I remember. I hear it all the time from my kids.
Yes, but my son does it too. Not a number. Not a number.
He's like, I've beat Luigi's Mansion thousands of times. It's like, son, we've had it for 2 weeks.
Thousands.
Impossible.
You liar. Did you ground him for lying like that?
I did. Yeah. He's been in his room for days now. Luigi's Mansion 3 is tight, Luke, by the way.
I have it. Yeah, when they're in the big hotel.
Yeah. It's very fun.
Yeah, I have it. It's good.
We're still waiting on the episode number. Is that what we're waiting for?
I think so.
I'm just on my phone now at this point.
Okay,
I
hold on.
stopped looking.
Uh, 822.
822.
822.
No.
Ready.
No. The trivia show was 834.
Oh, I'm looking at my Apple Podcast app on my computer, and it must have not updated.
Hold on, let's see. Yeah, this is 835.
Oh, 835. Yep, it just updated.
Okay.
835.
Cool.
All right, here we go.
I'm Deontay Burden, and
Whoops.
I'm Deontay Burden, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Hamadou Diallo.
Hey, I'm Danilo Gallinari.
I'm Chris Paul, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Luke Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
What's Dort?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what that was. In English, bro.
I'm Darius Baisley, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
I'm Steven Adams.
I'm Andre Robertson, and I'm down to dunk. On you.
Good morning and welcome to episode 8, 3, 5 of Down to Dunk. I am Luke, joined this morning by Andrew,
Slam through.
Taylor,
For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow. And his name is Draymond. Slam through.
and Jay.
It's my birthday.
Wow, it is your
Wow.
birthday. Happy birthday, Jay.
Thanks, man. 38 years old.
38.
You
I did
jolly
feel
good
that's a
fellow.
big number, man. It's feeling
big
it's
number.
every year it's one bigger than the year it was before.
Yeah, it just
Weird.
keeps going.
Which is wild. It's
Yeah.
wild.
Don't like
But I'm
that.
good, man. How are y'all? Y'all doing okay?
Yeah.
Things
Pretty good.
normalizing a little bit for you all?
No.
I mean, normalizing in that I'm getting used to what I'm doing.
That's what I meant. Not like, oh yeah, we're back to normal, but like, no, this has become my normal, so it's good.
I'm
Yeah.
good. This afternoon I'm gonna inject some disinfectant into my body.
Good. Okay, we have a couple of like newsy Thunder items to go over. Number one, Kendrick Perkins said this week that no way in hell the Thunder would have blown a 3-1 lead to the Warriors if they had me. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Perk saying that
Like as a mascot or a coach?
take it as however you'd like to take it to the bank.
I am filing this in the same thing as when Mark Wahlberg said if he had advanced knowledge of 9/11, he could have stopped it. It is a thing that is impossible.
No, I probably believe that one more than I do Perk's 3-1 comment.
Both impossible to prove.
Have you seen the other guys?
I have.
Yeah.
He's a superhero in that.
I understand that, but have you seen Kendrick Perkins? He is a big, strong man.
Yeah, the
So
funny
both
thing
could
for
have-
me about that is I'm like, hey, Kendrick Perkins, you know that you, like, not to your own fault. I get it, not your fault, but like you couldn't have played.
Well, his argument is his locker room leading.
Yeah, that's what
Maybe,
I think
maybe.
he was talking about.
Think
Is
he
like
could
he
have
wouldn't
led them?
let those guys. Yeah, he wouldn't let those guys mentally blow a 3-1 lead like that.
Yeah.
Because he's not saying that I would have defended Klay Thompson.
He did not say that.
I did not hear him say that. But it is funny that like one of the slower centers in the league at that point saying that he would have helped them beat the best small ball team of all time.
Yeah, from the bench, he could have led them to. Now, I do think he did. And this is me being wildly unfair to Perk. Like, Perk does bring a ton more off the floor than he would have obviously on the floor. I just don't know if schematically. I mean, there were some moments where they just weren't guarding Klay effectively, obviously. But dude, those guys just went bonkers in that game 6.
They did.
But this is where we are in the news cycle as far as sports. Is Kendrick Perkins is talking about what he would have done for an imaginary moment for the Thunder in 2016.
So ESPN played Game 7 of that 2010 Finals on Wednesday, and I watched it. And do you guys remember the score was like 56-54 going into the fourth quarter or something like that?
Between Boston and LA?
God, yeah,
it was
it was abysmal.
slog. Oh my God, it was so bad.
Bloodbath.
And Kobe was like 5 of 20 going.
Yeah, he was
so bad.
He won the MVP for that series, but he was not very good, especially in Game 7.
And
our test was awesome in that game.
Our test was amazing, and Powell was really good too, and Lamar Odom was really good in that game too. But they kept getting a lot of rebounds, and it was crazy. Like the Lakers' defense and offensively just being so massive with Powell up there and Meta World Peace being strong. It's crazy to think like Boston probably could have won that game if Perk could play that game.
Oh yeah,
Like that would have made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Big
That's
difference.
something he can say with
yeah,
certainty.
right. With confidence, he can say that.
Sheed played 36 minutes that game or something like that.
Yeah.
Hold on, who?
Rasheed Wallace, ended up playing like 36 minutes.
Remember, he was on that Celtics team.
Oh yeah.
Rasheed Wallace is the guy that I shouldn't like as an NBA player, but I loved.
He was awesome.
Him for the Pistons. He was so awesome for the Pistons. Even that he played for Portland in those Portland teams where they were playing the Lakers in conference finals, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was on those Scottie Pippen Blazers teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that was a good squad too. Brian Grant. I loved Brian Grant.
Yeah.
Detlef Shrimp.
L-Man, y'all maybe don't listen. The people that are listening may not know that the L-Man had an in with that Portland Trailblazers team. He was their number one fan.
What year?
I was a huge fan. This is like 90, 98, 99, 2000 probably.
Yeah. Early aughts.
My dad was Damon Stoudemire's lawyer, and so we got to go down when they played the Mavericks and like meet the team, and like it was awesome.
Your dad was a busy man back then, huh? With Damon on his
great.
hands.
It was well, it was one thing, but it was cool. I met Damon Stoudemire's dad, and it was cool. My brother had this huge Damon Stoudemire poster in his room that was probably 10 feet long, 8 feet tall. I mean, it was huge. It was like something that had been in like a store, and it was awesome.
Can confirm.
So that was when I started to pay attention to NBA.
Did you know Damon Stoudemire's nickname on Basketball Reference is Damon Layman Stoudemire? No, I'm sorry. That's his actual name. His full name is Damon Layman Stoudemire.
I like that. Do you think he's related to Jake Layman?
Yeah.
I think it's his dad. His name is Layman Stoudemire. Jacob
Luke, can
Layman
you confirm
Stoudemire.
that or no?
That is not correct.
No.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Well, so none of us believe Perk with what he had to say. One more thing, Luke, you may have some input on this, but there were charges filed against Terrence Ferguson in this past year. I guess 2 years ago, he was accused of rape, and I totally missed this, but charges were dropped, no charges. and I guess I just bring this up to say Terrence Ferguson has been dealing with so much off the court stuff that
I didn't know that.
I didn't know
I
it
didn't
either.
either.
It was reported in this past week, and I had somebody send me a Twitter message. I'll have to look who it is in just a second. Just say like, hey, you should bring this up. But I bring it up just to say that, I don't think that we would have predicted that Terrence Ferguson would have lost his starting spot to a two-way rookie this year. This was supposed to be kind of a big year for him. And there's been so much off the court stuff happening that it may have just been impossible for him to be in the game. Remember, like he had that period of time where he wasn't playing, and we were like, is he ever going to come back? Is he ever going to play again? I almost forgot about that until I saw this report. But all this to say that I'm not saying that obviously that Terrence will just be a great player after this, but if he can kind of get some of this off the court stuff off of his plate, it may make way for him to play better, because we've seen him play better than he has this season. And I think there are probably a lot of reasons why he hasn't performed well, and this may have been one of them.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I mean, I think it's well documented. He was dealing with some child support and care issues for a large part of the season. And something happen with his grandmother as well? Is that real?
Yeah, she had some, I don't know if she passed away or she had health issues. He's just had a tremendous amount of off the court stuff that has, some guys can play through it and be fine. And Terrence may just be one of those people that just can't. And that's probably why he took the leave of absence that he did.
I just don't know. I mean, there are some guys that probably could do that well, walk through that, maybe find that as an escape. But if you were dealing with this, I don't know if I could do my life normally, let alone go out and perform on a high level 82 nights, over the course of a year. Like it does bring a lot more understanding, and maybe not sympathy necessarily, but it does bring just more understanding to kind of that life that he's walking. And not to mention, what is he, 20?
Yeah, he's like 21, 22.
Yeah. I mean, 21, 22. I don't remember much of my 21s or 22s anyways, but I know that I wouldn't have been able to handle all of the amount of things that he's walking through with and be able to still perform at a high level. Or maybe I was naive enough at that point in my life where I was able to just avoid reality. But man, that's hard. That's heavy for him. I know that.
Yeah.
By the way, I looked at
Luke, any commentary? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, because I've not seen that. I don't know. I don't even know where he was charged or anything like that. I mean, I don't know, but I just know that, with the child stuff he's going through, that stuff is a lot. And I know that, there's allegations that are thrown around even, when that stuff is happening, and it really is a tough time in the easiest, even when everything's good and by agreement, it's a tough emotional time. And when things are not agreed, it is, it's really tough. And so, his number one focus most likely was not basketball during all this, especially when he had a bunch of other stuff going on. And so, hopefully he can get past all this and get back to it, but it's just hard to say. But that's, it's tough.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, what were you about to say?
Well, I looked into it, and so the reports were a woman accused him this February of raping her at a house party in 2018, and the Oklahoma City Police Department looked into it, and they decided that after talking to a bunch of people and looking into it, they are not going to press charges.
Okay.
So it was the police department deciding to not press charges.
Yeah, sounds like that may have been part of why he was gone from basketball for a while, which is, understandable. And I just thought, not that we need to have an in-depth discussion about this, but I think that it may help shed some light on the issues that he's having. And Dort's been great, not to disparage Lou Dort at all, because I love Lou Dort, but this should have been Terrence Ferguson's job to have that starting two guard for the Thunder, or three, or whatever you want to call it. He should have been the wing defender for this team, and he should have had that on lockdown. And I think that there are reasons why. Some of it is that Lou Dort played really well and is a good player, but Terrence has the ability to shoot it that Dort doesn't, and is a good defender. But so maybe we get a better version of Ferguson next season or in the playoffs or whatever. So, we also didn't talk about this. Andre Robertson did a podcast or like a video chat with somebody at the University of Colorado. And he said that essentially I should be back by now. And the goal was for him to play in some G League games with the Blue and then return for the Thunder at playoff time. And it's hard to say because at this point he can say whatever he wants. And like it's whatever, but also if they could get Andre back and he's anywhere close to where he was, which I don't know how you could say he is or he isn't. And I just like tweeted out his quote and people are like, how could you ever think this? And and then you get like the whole like Andre Robertson sucks anyways blowback, and Dort's better than Robertson has ever been on both sides of the court and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, like I can't deal with, I forgot what it's like to cover Andre Robertson for a second. But to me, if you could get Dre back and you don't have to play Abdel Nader in the playoffs, and you don't have to play even Terrence Ferguson at this point, if he's not playing well, like you don't have to play those guys and you can play him at the backup wing. I think that would be huge for this squad and for this team. But anyways, what are your thoughts on like Robertson potentially being able to play? Let's say they have the NBA in a bubble in July and you just get to add Andre to this team. What does that potentially look like? Taylor.
Well, I haven't been listening to you because I got distracted. Did you know Andre Robertson is dating Rachel Demita, the 2K girl? And he's been in her YouTube videos this year. I had no idea. I'm so sorry about this. I just saw this. Wow. And they met. He shot his shot on IG a couple years back. She responded. They've been dating ever since.
Love that.
What are your thoughts on him playing on this Thunder team?
I think it'd be great. I think he's got to prove that he can play better than Lou Dort, though. I'll tell you that.
Well, Dort would play. Dort would be in the rotation, but he would be like a backup wing for like 10 minutes a game. Instead of playing Nader in the playoffs, you get to give those minutes to Dre.
I think it would only help, and especially if he can get back to just scoring by the way he was before, which was essentially just cutting, being a really good cutter, and playing with Chris Paul and SGA. That's exactly the type of player I think would work great with them if they get into the mid range and can move things around, get Steven out of the way, and have Robertson cutting. I think that'd be great.
Did you already mention this as far as excuse me,
that he's dating Rachel Demita? Yeah, we just talked about it.
No. I'm saying I don't know if Dre comes back. Like, obviously, we've talked about this for now 2 years.
Yeah.
Is it Baisley's minutes that probably disappear when he comes back? That Baisley Nader kind of group?
Yeah. I think it's the backup wing minutes. And I don't know if he can play the 4. I don't know if he can play the 3. I don't know if he can play at all. I have no idea. But I think you still would like to give Bays some run. Because I think that in the past, the way that things have been handled, where you get to the playoffs and then you take minutes away from these young guys, I don't know that that's always super helpful to the development of those guys. I think thinking of Jeremy Lamb in particular.
Well, especially with the long-term goals of this Thunder team too, right? Like recognizing that as much as you want to be good because they are good. And I think the trade deadline kind of spoke a little bit to the fact that Sam was okay, like at least making some sort of run at this. At the same time, realizing like, hey, what's more important for us is that Baisley develops into, or at least we can see what Baisley can develop into as well. And a guy in Andre Robertson who literally is a free agent and really like him now, technically, if it was, or around now, if it was the real timeline of the season. But isn't Dre this offseason free agent?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like it'd be weird for them to go all in on that for the sake of Baisley's development. But I get it, because Dre would be a tremendous piece, especially, and you could probably, and what I would do is I think you could just match that up. And so if you do come up against the Clippers, then all of a sudden you throw Dre out there. I've wanted to see Dre play against some of these guards and wings that have been given the Thunder problems ever since he got hurt, right? Like, we know, to watch Dre play against Donovan Mitchell the year that they played him in the Jazz in the playoffs, or to at least have a shot to go out there and run around with Dame.
Oh,
it would have made a tremendous difference for this team.
Yeah.
So who knows what it's going to be, but it'd be exciting to at least see him play again, just for the personal side of it for me too. It's
so unlucky for Robinson that it just so happens that he's the 122nd highest paid player in the league. And in the last dance, that is Scottie Pippen. Like, what are the odds? It's just, it's so bad that it was him, and he's not even playing right now, and he's getting paid, as much as Scottie Pippen, and he's not near the player Scottie Pippen was. It's just really unfortunate. But I haven't been really paying attention. Did you know that he's dating Rachel Demina from NBA Live?
No, NBA 2K, man. The 2K girl. It's unbelievable. I can't believe I didn't know this.
That's so funny. Yeah, it is really funny that got brought up, because it's hilarious that it's Dre. You feel bad for Dre, but then you also don't feel bad for Dre at all at that point.
Because you feel a little bit worse for Scottie Pippen.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. Scottie Pippen signed a 7-year, $18 million contract. 7 years.
That's Do you believe?
And it was descending.
What's the owner's name?
Well, Krause is the one I remember, the GM. I don't remember.
Yeah, but the owner. So in the documentary, the owner said, "I told him not to sign the contract, and he wanted to."
Yeah, right.
Do you believe
no, it's
that?
hard to believe
There's
that.
no way I believe.
No. Yeah, don't sign this team-friendly contract. Don't you? No, I would not sign a team-friendly contract. Please don't.
I told him I wanted,
because that would only benefit me. That would only benefit me. Why would I want to benefit myself?
Let me give you more money. Let me give you more money.
Yeah, but he said no. This is all.
And it's funny on that documentary. It's funny where they're like, "Yeah, we wanted to renegotiate the contract, but the Bulls wouldn't let us," making the Bulls out to be like the enemy. Can you imagine, like, if the Thunder had like this great team and they were going to win their 6th championship, and what led to them getting all these great players was Scottie Pippen's small contract too. Can you imagine, like saying like, "Oh, I really wish that we could renegotiate and pay him so much more"? I think we'd just talk about like, can you believe the contract that we have Scottie Pippen on? This is amazing.
Wasn't it Dre that said that some of the luck that led to the Bulls to be able to compete without really coming into the financial implications of it was Scottie's? And he said, it reminds me a lot of our situation with the Warriors and Steph Curry. If Steph's first extension wasn't prorated based on not prorated, but wasn't reduced because of his injury history, this Warriors dynasty is never is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of parallels between them.
Well, and it's just all the 1,000 different things it takes for a team to actually win a championship and to win multiple championships. Like, you can be the Raptors, you can be the Mavs with hard work and getting a superstar and getting there. But to win year after year like these teams do, it just takes so much more than
it's just like
practice and good decisions.
Imagine in like 2011 that we signed James Harden to a 7-year, $18 million contract. Like, we'd be outrageous, phenomenal, best team in the league for the next 7 years.
Even if
if it was like 7-year, $60 million, is probably
what it's. Even if Harden would have signed the contract that he was offered, so truthfully, even if Harden would have been offered and signed the max, in 2 years, people would have been like, the Thunder are massively hooked up because remember, at the same time, the salary cap spiked to a level multiple times against the Thunder that would have made it to where that contract wouldn't have been as outlandish as maybe it seemed in the meanwhile. Like, they wouldn't have had to figure out how to navigate all these things. Like Harden would have been on a pretty premium contract for those few years. And so that's the stuff that's crazy, is like the future is just so unpredictable. In the same way, like any team that's preparing, like not trying to get into this conversation, but any same team that's preparing for this offseason, like how much salary cap can I have for this year? Maybe Giannis, like going to be dramatically impacted by the amount of financial loss that the NBA is taking because of the coronavirus stuff. Like if you're prepared, there's just so much uncertainty, so much luck that goes into building a championship contender these days, where it's like you just have to be lucky and fortunate, and then you have to also try to be shrewd in the middle of all of that. But it just has to be a combination of all of that stuff. Because are the Raptors the champions if the Warriors don't get just dramatically injured last year? Probably not.
You mean if they don't lose Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson?
Right. Yeah. So it's like you have to be lucky. I think the Raptors are a really good team, and I think their championship will be theirs. But it is like there's so much luck that goes into all of it. And I always think about this in the opposite direction when it comes to all of these players that played against Jordan. Charles Barkley's whole career is about how great he was, yet the fact that he didn't have a championship. And you watch the Suns, like Suns lost to the Bulls, like even those Rockets teams were really good, but just couldn't get past, couldn't get to that point that he played for. And you look at Patrick Ewing, just go down the long list of teams that had their whole entire franchise defined by coming up against Michael Jordan.
Yep. It's true. Transitioning to Draymond Green, he was on the Up in Smoke podcast? Was that what it's called?
All the Smoke.
Yes.
All the Smoke. All the Smoke. Very, very long, very interesting interview. It's like 2 hours long, and it's extremely entertaining for 2 hours because just listening to Draymond Green talk is very entertaining, and it makes you realize that like it's going to make way for Draymond to be a media member someday, like he's got to be on TNT. Right. But he talks about Durant in this interview in ways that we haven't really heard about. I think a lot of it was reported, but he talked about how in the middle of the season when Draymond got suspended for that argument that he had with Durant, you got to hear his side of it. And it was really interesting because part of what he said was that at the beginning of the season, he went to ownership and management and to Steve Kerr and said, "Hey, listen, there's something up with Kevin and I need help. You need to help me with him." And they just basically brushed that aside and said, "Okay, whatever." And then things eventually boiled over to Durant's yelling at him because he didn't pass him the ball. And, Draymond disagrees. He's like, "I'm trying to get you the ball." And there's this big argument and it's public and it just blows up and they end up suspending Draymond, and Draymond thinks it's ridiculous. And they're basically, all they're trying to do is doing whatever they can to hold this team together because Durant is going to break it apart. And I just thought listening to him talk about that dynamic was really interesting.
I think I thought it was great. I did mention this before the podcast, is it's been a long time since I've been around a person that uses the F word as often as Draymond Green does, and Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. But I think the thing that was the most, it's fine. It is what it is. Like Draymond Green, we obviously wouldn't be best friends if we existed in the same world. I appreciate a lot of what he brings. I appreciate his approach to the game in a lot of ways, but I really appreciated in this podcast the self-awareness he had of saying like, yeah, you all are stupid if you think that Kevin Durant left because of me. Yeah. Because it's the same thing with Russell Westbrook, truthfully. And I think Darnell Mayberry was the one that mentioned this, 7 years ago. I mean, whenever, I guess it was 2016. So almost 4 years ago, is that if Kevin Durant wanted somebody to be off the team, all he had to do is have a conversation. Like Kevin Durant could have went to Sam Presti and said, "Hey, listen, I'll stay here if you move Russell Westbrook for somebody that I would rather play with." Mm-hmm. Sam Presti, I think, maybe I'm crazy to think this, but I would assume that Sam Presti would be like, "Okay, we'll make that trade this summer."
Yep.
Same thing with the Warriors. Like Draymond Green was really self-aware to say, like, I'm not an idiot. Like, if KD wanted to stay and it was a choice between me and him, no matter the loyalty that the team had for me or the loyalty I have for the team, I know that I'd be gone. I would have been traded in a second.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's pretty, I mean, that's for him to admit that, like, kind of speaks against maybe the image of him that I've created in my own mind, you know. Now, it is incredibly common sense that would be the reality, but, you know, not all NBA players live in common sense.
Yeah. He goes from there then to also saying, like, I'm more impactful on the basketball court than
Charles
Barkley. So
that whole conversation makes me so angry. Like, just the underappreciation of who Charles Barkley was on the basketball court. That dude was elite on multiple levels.
Yeah, but he also is talking about how, you know, him and Charles Barkley like have a beef, and how Charles Barkley is talking down on Draymond Green's game in a way that like could affect his ability to make money. Like, he said the same thing, and he says the same thing happened with JaVale McGee and Shaq picking on JaVale McGee hurt JaVale McGee's income because people aren't going to pay him as much because he's the guy Shaq makes fun of. So there's a built-in beef there that of course he's going to.
I just disagree so fundamentally with that idea that Shaq's analysis of somebody is going to impact the way a GM. Like, if a GM is basing their decisions on player personnel on whether or not they're liked or valued in the media, that's just ignorance, man.
But I feel like owners do care.
Yeah, but it's also you got to think their ability to get
owners aren't going to care about Shaq.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about their ability to get endorsements. You know, a company's not going to be like, hey, I want, you know, JaVale McGee to be the face of my sports drink. Well, Shaq is there making fun of him every single game that he appears on TV.
Who in the world would have wanted JaVale McGee to be the face of their, like, JaVale McGee has found the perfect
I understand that.
Yeah.
But
nobody's down on Draymond Green because of Charles Barkley. They love the argument. The only reason anybody wants to interview Draymond Green right now is because of his beef with Kevin Durant and his beef with Charles Barkley. That's why he's controlling this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Draymond is liked. He's valued. He has all of those things. He's just wrong for trying to project himself as a better player or a more important player than Charles Barkley.
I do believe everything, all the Charles Barkley stuff aside, when I listened to him talk about the KD stuff and all the Warriors stuff, I believed every single word. Because I was every word. He does not benefit from lying about this. He only by telling the truth does this make sense. I believe every single word he said.
Yeah. Well, and it's just funny. You just wonder what it looked like behind the scenes for the Thunder too, as they're trying to hold everything together, as you know that like something is up with Kevin. And
so what do you really think? So I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm just trying to ask a question to help you kind of, I mean, it's a question I'm asking. Do you think it ever got to this? It doesn't feel like it never got to this in Oklahoma City.
No, it never got to this. Just because everybody had Kevin put in the place where he should have been, you know, and everything was great with Kevin, media wise, everything. It's just funny, like Kevin, and we've talked about this, and this is just the issue. This is like the fundamental issue with Kevin Durant, is that he is perpetually unhappy, which is like the worst thing that you could be if you're him, because you should be like all these other, and this is what separates him a little bit from like all these other big stars, is like they don't care. Like LeBron James doesn't care. Michael Jordan didn't care. Like they're going to be who they are. And if you say something, who cares? Kevin cares so much, and it makes him unhappy whenever people say that you're not this, or you're not enough here, you're not enough there. And, you know, with the Thunder, it was, well, he hadn't won a championship. Okay, let me go win some championships. Oh, I won the championships. Oh, that's still not enough for me. Like, I need your validation. Like, validate me. I need it. Give it to me. And he's not getting what he wants. And a lot of it is because of his own like attitude and demeanor, and that he is looking for the validation. Like, you didn't ever sense from a lot of these superstars that like, oh gosh, I need your validation. I just need it, except for from Kevin. And there's probably part of like all the media members that are like, yeah, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm not going to give you that validation. And it just makes for like this like crazy story of a guy who could have been the most talented player to ever play the game. Let's say he stays in Oklahoma City. He wins 3 championships or 4 championships or whatever. He continues to ascend. He doesn't, tear his Achilles. And like now he is known as the best player in the NBA. Like there's a path to that happening. Instead, he goes to the 73 win Warriors. Everyone knows it's a weak move, that it's stupid. He can't showcase exactly who he is and the type of player that he is because he's around too much talent. Like it dilutes all of their talent, because I think people started to think less of Steph Curry, probably less of Klay Thompson, less of Draymond Green, less of Kevin Durant. But the truth is that you can't showcase all your talent when you're around the most talented players in the league. Like you just can't do it, especially with how talented Steph is. And so Kevin wasn't getting what he wanted, which was what he had in Oklahoma City. And now he may never, ever get what he wanted. Well, and honestly, it's pretty sad because of like how much we invested into Kevin Durant and like as fans of him and of this team, to see his career. Like, yes, he's won finals MVPs. Yes, he's won the NBA finals, but there's still like a part of you that feels sad that, dude, you could have had everything you wanted. It was all here and you didn't realize it. Because yeah, if you didn't want to play with Russell Westbrook, tell Sam. He'll trade Russell Westbrook. He could have traded Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul or for somebody like that. And then you have a great team. You could have gotten a lot for Russell, but and again, he's lost his fan base. And it's funny that he goes to a team that is like, I've almost, and I don't want to disparage the Brooklyn Nets fans, but it almost is like a fanless team. There's not like a giant following of Brooklyn Nets people, like the Knicks or even like the Thunder. Like the Thunder fan base is like known throughout the league as like, that's a team that you will get listeners and readers and, eyes will be on you, it's just a funny thing but it is a thing like in the NBA. Like it's funny that Kevin had everything he wanted and then he just leaves, and then all this stuff with Draymond. It's just, to me, it's just crazy. And it's really just kind of sad to see.
The best thing is that the best example I can give is that for Kevin Durant, in his mind, the grass is always going to be greener somewhere else. He was in Oklahoma City. He felt like, well, we're not winning. We're not winning, this number of games. We're not having as much fun. Look, the Warriors are. I'll go there. He gets there. And he's like, well, this isn't, their problems here. I think I could go somewhere else and do it better with Kyrie and somewhere. And he's going to have there because he's always going to be looking for something he really already had.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It is just so funny, and it's almost just completely fitting that he's in search of all these things and he can't find it, and then he joins with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
The guy who just like tore apart a Boston Celtics team that should have been probably in the finals with the amount of talent that they had. And we're seeing that this year. But he doesn't, it's just crazy that it's very fitting that I can't find what I want. No, I'm going to join easily the weirdest superstar in the NBA. That's who I'm going to tie myself to. One, a really just a weird guy that even like Bill Simmons hates that guy, and he's like, I wouldn't even put that guy in my top 10 players or top 20 players just because of what he did. And a guy that's dealt with injuries throughout his whole career. Like that's who you're going to tie yourself to whenever. We don't know what Kevin will look like when he comes back. The Achilles tear for a guy his size, who knows? Like he may come back and be awesome.
12th season, 13th season.
Yeah, 13th. This will be his 13th season.
Coming back from Achilles tear. I mean, you said it, Andrew. Like that's not an easy one. I mean, look at John Wall. How long ago did he last play?
It's over a year.
He's going to miss this whole year. He missed a majority of, not all of last year. Like,
yeah,
it's a big deal. And
it is a big deal.
I just think, and you look, and the Nets are trying to, that podcast you did with the guy from the Brooklyn
Smelts, yeah,
which he has a fantastic radio voice, by the way. But
Smelts is the man.
Yeah, it was really good. But you look at it, and they're trying to find another superstar, but it's like, number one, good luck. You're going to have to deal with the fact of like people are going to really ask the question whether or not they want to play. Now, they may not have a choice if they get traded there. If it's you've leveraged the franchise to get Bradley Beal or something like that. Like, obviously that'd be a great addition. Or if it is Chris Paul, I get all of that, but it is like, for me, is I think the ceiling on this team is just like, you're going to spend the next 5 years, probably the rest of your career, if not just the rest of your prime, on a really weird team that's not going to compete on the highest level. And it's just, I don't know, like the choices he's made along his career have ruined what he could have been. And that's not just like Oklahoma City homerdom, that's coming out of the middle of that. Like, if he would have gone to literally anywhere else and competed and won a championship, I think people would have viewed, like, if you went to Portland and played with Dame and CJ and they would have gone and done some work and won a championship, like, people would have freaking loved him and there'd be no question. I still think he's a Hall of Fame player, but I can't remember a player in the history of me being an NBA fan that has done such a terrible job of maintaining his PR. Like, he's just the disliked player. Like, very few people like him anymore.
I mean, all he had to do was stay in Golden State, and like, I mean, they would probably be the title favorites next year if he would have stayed, right? I mean, they'd be the title favorites. All he has to do is just own who he is and own being on that team and know that he's the best player and not have to take it all so personally and just own it. And if he would have just owned it, everybody would probably say, yeah, I think Kevin Durant's the best player in the league.
Well, and the homerism for me, like, if you want to talk blatant homerism, is if you would have just stayed in Oklahoma City, they would have been maybe the favorites the next year.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the homerism where I'm just like, dude, you could have, like, there's no question for me that you could have won a championship in Oklahoma City if you would have stayed. Just another, even if you did a 1-on-1 for a few years, like,
oh, dude,
I just think that
the next year they would have been the favorite. There's no
especially
question.
especially with the surge for Victor Oladipo.
You get Oladipo and you have Sabonis on that team.
Even if you don't keep Sabonis, like, the way you could craft that team with the assets you just had, because even feasibly they could have had Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Kevin Durant on the same team.
Yes, it could have happened. Or like today, you have Victor Oladipo, Russell Westbrook, Domantas Sabonis at center, Kevin Durant at the 4, fill in whoever. It doesn't really matter who's on the wing.
Yeah.
Like that. And you trade Steven Adams for another for like a wing player or whatever. You keep Steven, you trade Domas for a wing player.
Yeah.
Like the truth is, like, they were set up so well, and you look back and people criticize Sam, for how things went and how things didn't develop like they should have and Kevin leaving and blah, blah, blah. But the truth is that Sam, with that trade, had set them up to become whatever, like to become a championship level team. But
they were also ready to sign Al Horford when he re-signed. Like, they were making moves for Durant for what he wanted. So hard to say exactly what things would have looked like, but I think Durant, would have been happier, and he would have been more liked, and all the negative stuff that came out about him wouldn't have come out about him, the whole cupcake thing and all that. I mean, I think he would have been a lot happier if he would have given it more years.
I will say this. I think the conversation that really kind of permeates both the Draymond Charles Barkley conversation and the Kevin Durant conversation is the emphasis we've placed on rings. Like, championships define people's career. And so now, like, the future of the NBA is championship hunting, and it will be until maybe that narrative changes, if it ever does, because you look at Charles Barkley and there really is a stigma of Charles Barkley. Like, oh, he's just never won the big one. They joke about it on TNT. Obviously, Draymond thinks that he's a superior player because of it. Like, that is a narrative that's not fake. Like, that's very much there. And so Kevin Durant, like, here's the deal: is history will evaluate Kevin Durant. He's a weird dude, but he was one of the best scorers of all time, and he won 2 championships.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah. But also, like, when was that not a part of the conversation, though?
Well, I feel like it maybe became, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like, at least in the conversation, like, great players were only evaluated based on whether or not they won the championship. I feel like that's just become more of a thing and not even the fact of elevating that, because the great players win championships things has always been probably a conversation. That's true. But I think the harder part of it is, like, you're not elite if you didn't win a championship. I think that's where the conversation shifted a little bit to where it's like we actually hold it against players that were incredible, but just couldn't ever do it by themselves or never, like, so we've devalued those guys that work. So if Dirk Nowitzki doesn't win that championship, people are going to think Dirk was great, but he just never won a championship. But now they're like, man, Dirk is maybe top 3 power forward of all time.
Yeah. It's true though. I mean, like it did validate his career in a lot of ways. And the fact that he did it, winning the championship does matter though. Like I feel like you can like swing the other way a little bit. Like
for sure.
If Dirk didn't do that, and let's say he lost in the Western Conference Finals, there's no chance that I'm saying that he's a top 5 power forward. But the fact that he carried a team and beat Miami, we get to put him there now.
Well, so let me maybe process this more in something that's personal. If you look at Chris Paul, I think there are people, and I think they have a valid argument to say that he is one of, at least in this era, the best point guards that played. Like, would you say that's fair?
I would, totally. I think,
but the evaluation of Chris Paul will always be, and you still hear it, even though they got to the Western Conference Finals a couple of times. They beat the Spurs in that series when they were with the Clippers. But the conversation with Chris Paul is always going to be, he can't win the big games,
and it's
because he doesn't have a championship.
And it's some of that's true.
Like it is, but does it?
You look at that Game 5 in OKC, and you just go watch it.
It's him. Absolutely.
He blows it.
The hard part for me though is like, does it detract from the fact that he's one of the best 2 or 3 point guards of this era?
Yeah, I think that if he won a title as the lead guy, I think that people may say he's the best point guard, and there's no competitor
of the 2010s or whatever,
Yeah, don't you think? But now it's like more of a conversation. Like,
yeah.
Okay. Like he's one of the best.
Yeah.
He could never, not being able to do it, and you being a top 5 player, or whatever, it does matter.
Yeah.
And it does play into the conversation quite a bit. And like Russell Westbrook will be evaluated that way, at the end of the day. Like, did Russ win a title? No, he never did. Was some of it his fault? Yeah, maybe. Is it, the teams he went against? Yeah, sure. Is it injuries? Yep, it's definitely, that plays a part in it, but he still never did it. And look at all the great players he played with.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's not something that you want to place all the emphasis on, but you can't not place a large amount of significance on it. And I also wonder, like, is it that the rings conversation has gotten more and more prevalent, or is it just that NBA coverage has gotten more and more prevalent? Like, it just gets, the NBA coverage itself gets louder and louder, as, I got the only ring that matters, guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I took away from that Draymond podcast too was he was talking about right after the 2017 finals when Kevin Durant beat LeBron, like he was better than LeBron in that finals. And I was looking at his stats and it's just unbelievable. I mean, he shot 55, 47, 92 and scored 35 points per game and just destroyed that whole finals. But then how right after the finals, the media was still saying, well, LeBron's still the best player. LeBron's still the best player because KD was on the Warriors. So they're not going to give KD the credit. Going back to what you were saying, Andrew, if this was on Oklahoma City Thunder and he did that against LeBron, he really might be considered the number 1 player in the league. But how that really bothered KD, and the next year he was so angry that, they just won the finals. He just won a championship. But he was so angry that he still wasn't considered the number 1 player in the league.
And so much of it, I think a lot of it is because we all search for validation. We all want to be validated in some sense. Healthiest people are the people that find their validation in things that aren't dictated or defined by other people, right?
Yeah.
And that's just something Kevin Durant just can't do. And I think you look at like a LeBron, and probably like, I think that everybody, if you make it to that level, you have to have some ego. You have to have an ego of some sort. And so I get like walking into that and having to deal with that because Kevin Durant he talked about it. I don't want to be second. I'm tired of being second. I was a second draft pick, and all of these different things. And for me, I'm like, I get all of that, man. But so number one is like, comparatively, I watch LeBron James, and I've said this before, and I keep going back and forth because the conversation is always going to be MJ and LeBron James. I get that. That's the conversation. LeBron James is if he's not the best player of all time, he's the second best player of all time.
Mhm.
And just because he was dragging a Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson team up against the greatest assembly of talent that's ever existed, it's not going to detract from the LeBron's greatness. Like Kevin Durant was amazing, but he also was just shooting wide open shots because he had 4 guys on the team.
Right.
You know, it's like, that's great.
Mhm.
If LeBron was surrounded by that team, who knows what would have happened? You know, if you take Draymond Green and replace him with LeBron James, even if you just had Steph and Clay, like they don't lose.
Oh my God. I
think
can't
they
even
lose a game.
imagine that.
They win like 6 in a row, and they probably don't break up because the problem was never Steph and Clay. Like those dudes, there's just nobody like those 2 guys in the league that are as good as they are, but yet we'll do whatever you want. You can be the guy. You can be the guy. They would be the guy on almost probably 25 other NBA teams, right? Either one of them. I don't care. Steph or Clay. They'd be the guy on 25 other NBA teams, but they're playing together. They like playing together. Oh, sure. We will accommodate you, Kevin Durant. But that's not enough. I mean, if LeBron was Kevin Durant in that spot, they win every title for forever.
That's crazy to think about. And that does kind of prove who's the better player, LeBron or KD. All we do is switch LeBron and KD, and it's like, oh my God, that's actually unstoppable.
Yeah, but the different thing is also like you don't even have to just switch. You could trade Kevin Durant and Draymond Green for LeBron James. You could have a team with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, LeBron James, Sean Livingston, the corpse of David West, JaVale McGee, and never lose a championship for a decade.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
So it's always a funny. I mean, it's just a hard conversation. Kevin Durant's a big weirdo, and it's hard because he was our big weirdo, and it kind of was like endearing. And
big weirdo.
And he never was weird, but now, man, he's insufferable, and somehow he still controls conversations, even when there's not NBA, and it's just
even when he hasn't talked.
That's true, right?
Like this is not
because but I guarantee you if Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes are brilliant, like, hey Kevin, come on our podcast next week.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'll talk for 2 hours and we want to hear your side of the story.
I would love it.
I mean, that he's on a burner Twitter account responding to people responding to that, the Twitter post of that podcast.
Yep.
I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. He's reached out. He's going to be posting something vague on Twitter that's about that. And we will be talking about this in 2 to 3 weeks, without a doubt.
It's going to be very, very good. And it's just funny. Like he goes to the Nets and he says like, I want to go there for the culture. Well, a year later, they fire their coach and they're talking about trading all the guys that the culture was all about because of him.
Right. You're going to lose Spencer Dinwiddie, who's been like the heart of this Nets run.
And very good, by the way.
He is good. And he's going to be, I think he'll be great somewhere. I have no desire. You mentioned this, and I know you mentioned it again on the Dream Team. Like, I would take Spencer Dinwiddie just to see if I can get a top 10 or 15 unprotected pick from somebody. Like, let me take him and turn him to the Magic. Sounds great. Karis LeVert, where would I send Karis LeVert? That'd be great. They're just not on our timeline, and they're going to pull the Thunder into mediocrity, which they'll be great. They'll be a great 8 seed or maybe the 9th or 10th and just, live in that for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Nope.
There's no way. Okay, Boomtown. We are in, what is it, chapters 9 and 10? Is that right? Or 7 and 8? Which is, I don't remember.
I'm not certain. These were also the shortest chapters we've had to date.
Yeah.
The Nooner chapter
Nooners was the first one.
2 pages.
Yeah, go ahead.
They were 2 pages.
Yeah,
long.
very short. It just talked about how basically the beginning of the land run, and it was supposed to happen at noon, but no one knew exactly what noon was.
Yeah, the purpose of the chapter was to just talk about noon.
Yeah. Does anybody know what noon is?
This is just noon.
Everyone has different noons. Never thought about everyone having a different noon, but I guess it's true.
Isn't noon just 12 p.m.?
Yeah, it's also like when the sun is directly above you. This is before we had the internet and digital clocks that are all the same.
Jay, did you read the chapter? This is what the whole chapter is about. Is it 12? Is it the sun? Well, there's different 12s too.
Yeah. I love the fact he talked about rich folk used Racehorses.
Racehorses.
They spent a lot of money on racehorses to try to beat everybody because the thing I should have realized this, I just didn't. I didn't recognize or realize that there were railroads that were still a part of Oklahoma, even though it was no man's land or Indian territory. Like they still had built railroads through it, and so people that at least knew the land knew, like, we got to get to a river, we got to get to a body of water, and we got to get to the railroad. And so that's why people push further and further down to the central of Oklahoma, where Guthrie, Oklahoma City area land. I just didn't. I mean, it makes sense, obviously, like they wouldn't just avoid that, but now it's like, okay, that's why they defined the areas that they did.
Yep. We almost had the Guthrie Thunder, by the way.
It would have felt very different.
Why did Oklahoma City end up taking off and Guthrie didn't? Is he going to talk about this later on?
So if you, one of the things that happens, Guthrie was the original state capital, and it was stolen. They went and stole the seal and made it and took it. And what's crazy is, so I went to Central Middle School, which is now CAPS, down on 39th and MacArthur. At least it is until next semester when they're moving. And one of the lore stories of Central was there was a building on the kind of east side of our campus that the story goes that when they stole the state seal from Guthrie, that they hid it in the basement of that building on Central's campus until they were able to reestablish Oklahoma City as the capital. So
can you imagine, like, that is just such a strange thing to happen, right? Like, can you imagine,
I bet it's
they have the seal. We are no longer the capital.
Right.
Unless this object is here.
It's probably more than that, but that's at least my vague memory of how that kind of went down.
Like McAllister has stolen the capital of Oklahoma. No,
they have the seal. No.
But to be fair, like, the city that has the name of the state should probably be the capital. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just a hilarious thing. Okay, next chapter was just about James Harden, his arrival in Oklahoma City. How
a lot about his beard.
A lot of beard talk, but there was a lot of, like, there were beard t-shirts.
It was a big deal. He wasn't wrong.
Beard everything. Yeah.
That Daily Thunder beard shirt.
Yeah, I was really disappointed he did not bring up the Daily Thunder beard shirt. That was the coolest. That was the coolest fan thing that we did.
Mm-hmm.
I have a picture, and I'll have to find it, but there's a picture of me. I got one of those courtside seat filler moments. There's a picture of me, and I've got the James Harden orange Daily Thunder one, and I've got a pair of jeans on, and I'm watching, like, Russell Westbrook do a jump shot right in front of me. Like, I was a Harden fanatic. I love that guy, man.
Yeah,
that was, and it's one of those things I either forgot or just kind of blocked out of my mind. Is like, man, the city really was nuts for James Harden.
He was good.
He was, some would even say, great. What's wild is we've done a lot of podcasts, so it all kind of blurs into one. But was it Alex that mentioned in that championship season that in our trivia game that James Harden had the highest net rating of the entire team for that playoff run?
Yes.
Whew. That one hurts.
I know. It's painful. It's a painful chapter to read about.
Yes.
But
even our hard history is still our history.
It's so true. And I was just thinking about how quickly our superstars became superstars. Like Russell Westbrook in his second year was when we got 50 wins and played the Lakers in the playoffs, and Kobe was, praising KD and Russ. And it's wild. That was only Russ's second season. It was Harden's rookie season. Harden's second season, he really started coming on. And it was in Harden's second season in the playoffs that he started becoming who he was. And it's just kind of wild that we had these draft picks and they came to fruition so quickly. And I'm not used to that. I forgot that it was like that, because it is just not like that anymore,
No. Well, it's just not. It just has never been like that.
Right.
For anybody.
But to us, that's just what it was. That was the reality. You draft someone and you only have to wait like a year.
Yeah.
It was kind of the same with Serge, to be honest.
Serge was awesome the moment he was on the team.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was. There will probably never, ever be anything like that in NBA history ever again. It's just impossible to think about. 3 MVPs back to back to back, and you don't have the number 1 pick in any of those drafts.
I think it's the bittersweet part of all of this. Like, it just being honest, like, as I read more about the story, it's just it'll be really hard not to, in 10 years, like always look back at the 2012 run and be just like, there's no question the Thunder missed an opportunity to legitimately be a dynasty. Whose fault it is, whatever. Like it is, like we can put that on whatever. You can be Sam's fault. It can be Harden not wanting to be whatever. Like I'm not having that conversation. The conversation is like the Thunder were the dynasty that never were, more than any team that I ever remember.
Can you imagine what would have happened to LeBron's legacy or in that whole Heat thing if the Thunder had won that year? If LeBron and Dwayne Wade in that Heat team got beat by 23-year-olds in the finals?
Yeah.
It would completely change.
Yes, and somebody said that had they lost that, where was this at? I heard this.
Yeah, I
somewhere.
vaguely remember that too.
That if they would have lost that series to the Thunder, they were going to break it up. They were going to break up the Big Three in Miami.
Wow.
I mean, it's wild, and they won Game 1. They won Game 1.
Well, and they were
Like,
KD
easily.
not called foul in Game 2 to at least have a shot to win Game 2.
Or just play Serge at center.
Yeah,
true.
You know.
Well, and the thing is like the Thunder would have had problems. Like the Thunder would, like every championship team does. There is a cycle of their well-being and health and connection and all of those different things. Like the Thunder maybe put 3 runs in a row, and then all of a sudden James does want to go be the guy, and Russell. Who knows how the thing splits up. Obviously, there's personalities in all 3 of their major players, and so it would have done something.
Sure,
right? And because that was the. Yeah, I was just saying that's the unique thing about that Bulls team is they had just the right complexity of personalities to where, at least for the 2 different runs they made, like it worked. Like people kind of knew their role and played their role, and you had one alpha and really good to great supporting role players.
Do you think it benefited the Spurs to not win back-to-back championships, to not go on runs like that?
Maybe. Yeah, it's a legitimately very good question. But they may have not been able to stay together. And honestly, I don't think we'll ever see anything like we did with the Bulls ever again.
No.
Never.
The other thing, I'm so excited for Sunday, focusing on Rodman, because I think so important to that Bulls team was that they didn't focus, like the personalities of the players, like didn't really ever get shined on to where, like, because Rodman hogged all of that personality spotlight. I'm so excited for this Sunday.
Yeah, and what you're seeing as well in that documentary is the fact that, like, part of that also is just the fact that Michael Jordan wasn't ever going to allow anything like that to stop him from winning. The thing that Michael had that nobody else. I mean, there's other people that have had it like him, but I'm not sure. Was that just pure, unadulterated will of just taking a team and saying, I don't give a crap what comes in our way. We're going to compete at the highest level. That's the thing. Like, it's all about those leaders. Like, you look at the Spurs. So the reason the Spurs are what they were is because they were kind of built on David Robinson, Tim Duncan to start. Then you added a whole bunch of personalities that just fit. You had a guy like Manu Ginobili who was just kind of cool with whatever it is. You have Tony Parker who comes in and is like, I can just be a great piece. But Tim Duncan and David Robinson set the culture of that team, and that was the game changer. That was it for them.
For sure. But like, they did have some drama issues with Tony Parker through all that too.
Sure.
There was with Popovich, but also then with other teammates. I mean, about the Tony Parker wife thing. And I just wonder, like, if they had won 2 or 3 in a row when Parker was young and when Ginobili was there, like, would they have started to have a falling out like everyone else did? Or did they benefit from losing between those years,
Right. Maybe.
I think there was some benefit. Their personalities are just so different than all these other guys too, though. Like Manu's personality is so different from like any like James Harden and Manu get compared all the time. But the truth is, like, personality wise, they couldn't be further apart.
It's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for listening to our show.
Do you think they shared love of strip clubs?
For sure. That's the only commonality between them, actually.
They both see each other in the strip club and high five.
Yeah, that's pretty much the extent of their relationship, I've heard.
Andrew, how's your cereal game, man?
Strong.
Anything new you've been trying?
No, I'm playing the hits right now. Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
There's no time for trying stuff new.
No. Just comfort right now, man.
This is just pure comfort. Yeah. Frosted mini wheats.
right, boys. I've spent enough time in my office today.